Hello and welcome to another episode of Discernment Now. My name is Rich Van Every. This is Kevin Anthony. We're so excited to converse with you today about common sense, which is not all that common. So we have a list of stories coming through the legacy media pipeline, and we are going to just rip them out for you so you can get caught up on all the juicy stuff that's going down. It's really increasingly entertaining and troubling, you could say.
I don't think any of these have anything to do with common sense.
Well, we want to use common sense when looking at them, right? So
Right.
that's the point of the show, to exercise and promote discernment, which is one of those rare qualities these days. Be sure not to add extra fluoride to your water. It's already in there. If you're drinking tap water, highly don't recommend that. But we will, hopefully educate and inspire you to continue on these conversations with other people, and that's the whole point of our show.
Well, speaking of getting things in your water that you don't want, let's talk about a new study that came out to show that breastfeeding mothers do indeed pass mRNA to their infants.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yet another thing that they told you was not possible. So why are we talking about it on this show? Well, of course, because we want to expose the lies. Pretty much everything that they have told you about these jabs has been a lie. Now, some people might say, well, they just didn't know, blah, blah, blah. Okay, if you want to go that route and say, well, they didn't actually lie to us, that's what they thought at the time, and now we found out more, then they shouldn't have approved these things. If they didn't have that kind of knowledge, then they should have never been approved to begin with.
Yeah, or promoted pregnant women to do an experimental gene therapy like this. And one side note on this is that mRNA is a natural occurring element within our body. Yet this is not what we're talking about. It's modified RNA. So this is a whole part of the equation here where they change definitions, without maybe telling you sometimes, and
all the time.
Yeah, and so you got to really be on your toes and not just take these obscure acronyms at face value.
For sure.
Yeah, but devastating news. Thanks for sharing it, Kev.
Next story. China lists Joe Biden's home address in Delaware as the beneficiary of 2 wire payments.
Busted.
So the Democrats have been saying over and over and over again, if you turn on any major media, you're going to hear this repeated over and over and over again. There's not a shred of evidence. There's no evidence whatsoever. This is a Republican witch hunt. There's no... You'll hear that over and over and over again. Despite the fact that they have bank records, they have testimony from 2 different business associates. They have emails from Hunter Biden's laptop. They have text messages from the phone. They have a mountain of evidence to prove that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden were running an influence peddling scam.
Yeah. It's called the Biden crime family for a reason.
But here we go. Now we have yet more evidence, which is they literally put his home address on the bribe payments that they sent him.
That's almost as bad as forgetting that you left your laptop at a repair center.
Yeah, for being the biggest criminals this country has ever seen, they sure are bad at it.
Yeah.
They really are.
We appreciate their sloppiness, though.
They left a trail of evidence a mile long. So, this is just one more thing that you can add to your arsenal when you hear people say, there isn't a shred of evidence. You can say, okay, here you go. Here's yet another piece of evidence proving what they were up to. Speaking of Joe Biden.
Yeah. Oh, do we need to? Okay. Again, more? We have more.
Well, the impeachment hearings have begun.
There's not too many people talking about that.
What? Interestingly enough, the mainstream media doesn't want to cover it.
Yeah.
I wonder why that would be.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why that is. The mainstream media doesn't want to cover it because in these hearings, there's going to be a lot of evidence shown, a lot of things that people, if they're not following alternative media sources, probably haven't heard yet. So you and I are like, there's a mountain of evidence. We can list off, probably 20 different pieces of evidence, towards this case. But a lot of people aren't necessarily aware of that because they're
Yeah.
not following the same channels and the same sources.
It's a lot to swallow.
So when these things are covered on C-SPAN, as they will be, they don't want people to be exposed to that evidence. So the mainstream media is basically just burying it because they're not going to cover it. Like, they're going to make you, if you want to know about it, you're either going to have to go watch it all on C-SPAN or you're going to have to go follow alternative media because the mainstream's never going to cover it.
Yeah, and we got all kinds of fraudulent charges on Mr. Trump as well. Just,
that's a whole separate issue.
To distract you with. So that just focus on that. Why don't you? That's,
yeah. But it's interesting, though. I will say that, honestly, I did not think that they were ever going to actually do an impeachment. I figured the swampy Republicans would just talk about it all day long and never actually do anything, which is what swampy Republicans usually do. A whole lot of talk and no action. So I was quite surprised to see that they actually did start it. Where it goes from here?
They must have a plan, right? Because everyone seems to be terrified of Kamala ever sitting in sort of leadership position. But
there's another interesting point to bring up with this impeachment. The Democrats were all over the media saying that this is crazy and totally breaks tradition because they didn't hold a full House vote on whether or not they were going to do an impeachment. And AOC gave this just stirring, emotional
she's so good at that
speech about how wrong this is and
of
how
course.
evil the Republicans are.
Of course.
But let me just remind you, there were 2 Trump impeachments. The first one had a vote. The second one didn't. So the Democrats did the exact same thing to Trump, never held a full vote on the House floor, and they did an impeachment anyway. So when you hear the Democrats making that argument, you can tell them to go fuck themselves because they already did the exact same thing. They already set the precedent.
Hypocrites.
Oh, you have no idea how big of hypocrites they are.
Never ending.
All right. Speaking of insanity going on in Congress.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So, there's been this big vote happening about, shutting down the country or approving the spending bills, whatever.
Spare me.
A Democratic U.S. Representative, Jamal Bowman, literally, in order to stop a vote, pulled a fire alarm in the Capitol complex.
Wow.
So the Democrats wanted to delay the vote.
Hey, it's a creative move. I'll give them that.
What are we, 5 fucking years old here?
Yeah, that's what you do in when you're in school. You pull the fire alarm.
This
you want to get out of school. That's what you do.
No, this is the equivalent of you're playing a board game as a kid and you're losing. So you get frustrated and you just throw the whole board and destroy the entire game. That's literally what they did.
But he got a big bonus for this. Kevin.
Well, I'm sure he probably did.
Got a bonus.
This is 5-year-old behavior. 5-year-old behavior. Seriously. This guy needs to be thrown out immediately. Now, they're talking about an investigation, and one article I read said he could face up to 30 years in prison for doing this. That's never going to happen.
No.
And honestly, I don't think 30 years in prison is even I don't think that matches, what he did. What he did was juvenile and stupid and potentially dangerous. But it definitely warrants him getting kicked out.
It wasn't on his own accord either.
Well, but you'll never prove that. He'll never say that. But the point is
he's taking one for the team.
He needs to be thrown out immediately. You
He's
cannot.
a tool.
These are supposed to be intelligent, educated people who are there to make good decisions.
Right.
You don't pull a fire alarm because you're not getting your way in a vote.
No. It's like a tool that you use only one time and then you throw it away.
And by the way, the Capitol Police have images of him doing it. They have literal photographic evidence.
The security cameras tell me it wasn't like a media publicity.
It says a still image released by the Capitol Police on Saturday showed Bowman, who represents part of New York City and its immediate suburbs, activating the fire alarm near the exit to an office building which houses congressional offices.
Well, I hope it's a still frame from the video that was in the security cameras, not actually a photo op scenario, because how would somebody have a photo of that unless it was a staged thing?
There's security cameras everywhere. It's
Yeah.
got to be.
Well,
from
let's take a
security
screenshot
camera.
and not call it a photo. Thank you very much.
Well, that's
Coming
just
from a
what's being
photographer,
reported.
Right.
Bowman himself, by the way, his defense for what he did was, I don't know how fire alarms work.
Oh, let's just pull it and see what happens.
Are you kidding me?
Come
All right,
on.
hold on. Let's talk about 5-year-old behavior again, right? When you're 5 years old,
You can pull that. That can be justified.
No,
at
when
5.
you're 5 years old and you go to school, what's one of the first things they tell you?
Don't do that.
Don't pull the fire alarm. Everybody knows how they work. You can't tell me he's that stupid. He knows if he goes over there and touches it, there's a significant chance that it's going to go off. See, fire alarms are really simple. Anybody can figure it out. No fire, you don't touch it. Fire, you touch it. It's literally that simple. Don't give me a bullshit excuse that you don't know how fire alarms work. This guy needs to be thrown out immediately. And if he's not, it's a complete disgrace.
Yeah. It's another embarrassment to
Oh,
what we represent.
so, that's clown show stuff, right? Like when we talk
it's
about
over the top.
when we talk about clown world, this is what we mean.
Yeah.
Things that are so absurd and so ridiculous that it's like they're not even trying anymore.
Right.
So we've got another one for you.
Oh no. You can laugh now, cry later. It's okay.
So we all know that Dianne Feinstein did pass away recently. Now, as someone who's experienced a fair amount of death of people close to me recently, I'm not going to gloat in the fact that she's dead. Although I think she was an absolutely horrible person, and I'm glad she's no longer in Congress. Still, I don't really wish death necessarily on her, but I'm glad she's no longer in Congress. However, because she has died midterm, somebody needs to be nominated to take her place and fulfill the rest of that term. So Governor Gavin Newsom has nominated somebody. Her name is Laphonza Butler. She's apparently the president of Emily's List, a Democratic political action committee dedicated to electing pro-abortion Democratic women to office. So that is interesting in and of itself, who he chose. But here's the best part. And you want to talk about clown world. It doesn't get any more clown world than this. You understand that to be a representative or a senator from a particular state, you have to live in that state.
You would think.
Now,
come
in
on.
the past, the way that they've controlled this is they would just send people to go buy a house and live there for a year, and then magically they'd be running. They don't know anything really about the place. They've never spent any significant time there. They weren't born and raised there. They're not integrated into the population there, but they technically live there, so it works. You see this all the time if you dig into the who's who and who's related to who. They shuffle politicians around the country all the time to different states so that they can start to control different states. That's nothing new.
Yeah. It's kind of like
However,
revolving door, but different. Yeah.
Yeah. However, the reason why this is even more clown world than usual is because Butler's home address is listed as Silver Spring, Maryland. The complete opposite side of the country. She doesn't even live in California.
Wow. Get your popcorn out and just gag on it already, will you?
Folks, they're not even trying anymore.
No.
They're not even trying to make it look like it has any legitimacy whatsoever.
Or they're purposely making it so illegitimate that they're putting it in your face like, yeah, we'll just do whatever we want and it doesn't have to make sense or anything.
Well, there might be a little bit of an FU to the whole situation, but...
Well, and the other incredible thing that I had caught wind of was that apparently Feinstein voted like the day before she died. I'm not quite sure how that went down. But she was good for that one last vote before she went out.
Yeah.
So
we're not buying that one, but whatever.
No, she wasn't cognizant.
Personally, she probably hasn't voted in a long time, like actually voted in a long time, because she's been incapacitated for a while. But
I think it would be fascinating to see a list of her accomplishments and all the things in which she did as well.
I'll tell you everything you need to know about
absolutely damning
about Dianne Feinstein's accomplishments. she had a driver who was a Chinese spy, a CCP
Oh,
spy,
that's not that bad.
who was her driver for a decade.
Oh, come on. That's not that bad.
That's all you need to. And you mean to tell me she didn't know about it? Apparently a bunch of other people knew about it. Yeah, that's all you need to know about Dianne Feinstein.
That's a notable achievement for sure.
Okay, moving along.
Let's do it.
Kevin McCarthy has been ousted.
Oh, really?
As Speaker of the House.
You're done, buddy.
So one of the things that McCarthy had to agree to in order to be put into that position was that anybody could make a motion to vacate and remove the Speaker.
Mm-hmm.
So he did agree to that, and that rule was put into place. Well, if you remember, it was quite difficult to get McCarthy in to begin with because a lot of people didn't want him.
Yeah.
He was generally viewed as a swampy Republican who was not strong and was going to cave in to pretty much whatever the Democrats wanted.
Yeah.
He did do a few things that surprised us that were pro-liberty, but he also was making a lot of concessions and was being the sort of wishy-washy, flip-floppy guy that we all assumed he would be.
Mm-hmm.
So in the recent, debates over government shutdown and spending bills, he was apparently making backroom deals with the Democrats that many of the Republicans were not in favor of. And so Matt Gaetz proposed, he actually did do a motion to vacate.
Yeah.
They held a vote, and he is now out.
Wow.
So now the battle begins for who's going to take his place and who's going to get enough votes and all of that. This is going to be interesting. You know, I'm not sad to see McCarthy go.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there are far better people that could be in that position.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, a lot of times in these things, it's like, guys that have been around in the political machine for a long time have quote unquote seniority. And it's like, there's faux pas about you know what? Screw all of that, I say. You put somebody in there who's good and who's going to do the job. I don't even care if they're a first term, representative in the House. If they're good and they're going to do what's right, then great.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always work that way. So we'll have to see. I can tell you this, though. The media is going to make this into a giant circus show.
Oh, boy.
And they're going to use it over and over and over again to distract you from Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Ukraine, the disastrous economy, and all the other problems that are happening, the border crisis.
Yeah.
They're going to use this over and over and over again to distract you. So don't pay any attention to it. Don't lose sight of the real issues.
Yeah. Yeah. This is wild because honestly, you just do want to wonder how much of this political theater is of any valid interest to us anymore, and we gotta remember we still in theory have a constitutional backing behind all of this, or at least it's something to claim we can stand on, even though so many people are trying to trample on it right now. Trample, that's the right word. But I don't know. So I mean, what is your sense, Kevin, about how we hopefully, there's a lot of things that need to happen in order to, see this revolution through, because we are living through a form of revolution right now, would you say? Or is it just...
It's hard to say. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. We might be. Might be.
So, so you either need to be in the game, which is at least talking about it, or you're sitting on the sidelines.
What I can say for sure is there's an absolute push by people that we call the far left that really are communist. There's no other way to put it.
Or anti-American.
Yeah, well, they're just they're communist globalists who basically want to give up U.S. sovereignty and give it over to the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization and basically turn us into the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah,
right?
So don't get sold on the Green New Deal. Don't get sold on equality and equity and all this nonsense.
So that for sure is happening. There's absolutely no doubt about it. The question is are we going to stop it? And so when I think of revolution, I think of overthrowing that power structure, because that power structure is the one that's been in place for a while.
Yeah.
So I do see signs, but we're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah. Yeah. Could get a little bumpy here. Might get worse before it gets better, they say.
We will see.
So do your prayers and, Be prepared.
All right,
What do we
next
got?
story. So finally, some Democrats are starting to recognize that this massive border crisis and illegal immigration is a problem.
Really?
Yeah, it's strange. You know, a while back, New York City Mayor Eric Adams declared a state of emergency over the migrant crisis. The governor of New York, Hochul, has also been finally coming out and saying this is a problem because it's bankrupting both New York City and the state because they can't afford to pay for all of these. Oh, shocking.
Yeah.
Oh, like we didn't know that was going to happen,
Yeah,
right?
it sounds really great to be a sanctuary city, but then when you actually have to deal with it, maybe not.
Look, you know that these people don't actually believe what they're telling you. When people like Hochul or Eric Adams, if they go out there and they tell you that there's no such thing as an illegal human and we need to be open for everybody and we'll be a sanctuary city and y'all just come on in, they don't believe a word of that. They don't. They do it to get elected.
Yeah.
And if you haven't heard of this already, the
Follow
Democrats
orders.
have an idea. It's called replacement theory. They want to replace white American voters with illegal immigrants. Now you're saying, but illegal immigrants can't vote. But they're working on that also by trying to give them all driver's licenses.
Yeah, government
and
ID.
So the first thing is to get them driver's license, but the second thing is they're combining now registering to vote with getting your driver's license.
I think it's just a government ID. I don't even think it's a driver's license. But
well, it could be
same type of thing.
In some places, it's a driver's license.
Oh, wow.
So what you're going to see is when these illegals apply for driver's licenses, they're accidentally going to be put on the voter rolls. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. That is exactly the whole point of it.
Yeah.
So, but I bring this up also because the Illinois governor, Pritzker, is finally calling for action at the border. He wants something done.
Come on now.
Why? Because places like Chicago are getting completely overrun by illegals and they can't handle it. And it's literally destroying their cities. They're like combat zones now.
Wow.
So
be grateful you don't live in one, and if you do, make a comment in the comments section.
Yeah, and the reason why we want to talk about this stuff is because you just need to know how full of shit these people are. They don't believe any of it. It's just like all these Democrat mayors and governors who called for defunding the police. Well, half of them quietly refunded the police after all the big media hit, right?
Yeah.
So they got, Black Lives Matter and everybody behind them. Yeah, we need to defund these horrible police, right? Mm-hmm. They defunded the police. Shit got completely out of hand, and then they quietly refunded them. And of course, you never hear the media talk about it, right? Like LA is one example of a city that did that. So they're all full of shit. Do not believe anything that any of them have to say.
Well, the question is, would you take the paycheck? Would you sell your soul? I hope not. I wouldn't do it.
Last story today is what I consider a feel-good story.
Oh, that's a good one to close on.
We want to end on a feel-good story, right?
Yeah.
So the feel-good story is this. Congressman Henry Cuellar, I don't know how you pronounce his name, but he's a Democrat. He's from Texas. Texas, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Mm-hmm. But he was actually carjacked at gunpoint outside of his Washington, D.C. apartment.
Oh, wow.
Reports state that several armed suspects pointed guns at his head and demanded his car, cell phone, and food. So, how in the world can I say that somebody getting carjacked at gunpoint is a feel-good story? Well, I'll explain it to you. It's a feel-good story because, again, it's the Democrats who voted to defund the police. It's the Democrats who keep voting to remove bail. It's Democrats who are creating laws that put people either right back out on the street or you can't prosecute them for thefts under $1,000. They're the ones creating these policies, and so these are the results of the policies. Crime is exploding all over the country. And it's a feel-good story because somebody, and I don't know specifically if he voted for these things, but somebody who's a Democrat, who's on the side of the party, who keeps doing these things, got what was coming to him. You want to defund the police? You get carjacked.
Yeah, he's lucky he didn't get murdered, so that's the feel-good part of it,
Well, yeah, I'm glad he didn't, but the point is that
could have been worse. Could have been way worse.
If you're gonna make dumb policies, like you've heard the expression, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right? So if you're gonna play stupid games by defunding police and decriminalizing all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Then you're gonna win a stupid prize, which means you're gonna get carjacked.
Yeah. Yeah, we got issues, people. So this is the time to take responsibility, be a excellent adult, be a proud American, and begin to exercise your courage and bravery to stand up for what's right, to speak out, to speak up, and to really be willing to sacrifice certain things in your life in order to make sure we don't get into a slippery slope in which we will never recover. I think we're still hanging on the edge here of some sanity.
We can always recover. We can always fix it. It's just a matter of how much damage do we have to repair.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm kind of hoping we don't have to endure too much more, but we shall see. It's up to all of us, though. That's what I know. Nobody's coming to save us. It's up to us. And even if you just do a little part about, in regards to being a part of the conversation, that is part of the solution. Even though we don't maybe have the answers to the solutions, we don't know much for certain, we can certainly be participating rather than not. And I think that is a good point to end on. So Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. Stay healthy, stay free. God bless.